Okay. All right. Hi. I would like to welcome you. This is the final session for this first day of the JoAnn Inaugural Conference. I want to thank you all for being here. There is literature up here, as I've announced. You might want to, if you want to, come up here and get this. This is a very important session that we're having here. It was part of the vision that we initially developed in terms of our JA. And what it is it's a session on community organizing and class consciousness. And I think one of the things when I spoke with Clara, when we were talking about putting this together, she was really insistent, I should say, on the fact that we have a community organizing panel. And I said, well, if we're going to do that, we need to bring in some of the best community organizers that I know of. And so that's what we've been able to do. And I don't want to just put people that I know ahead of everybody. We got a wonderful panel here. But I do need to say that here at the Center for Heterodox Economics, in the 1990s, it's a personal story for me, and I'll just be very brief on this. In the 1990s, I went to the New School for Social Research, and I studied economic theory and Marxian political economy under the tutelage of Anwar Sheikh. And I was very fortunate at the same time in 1993 to be caught up in a vast organizing campaign that Chinese Staff and Workers Association did around a particular restaurant called Silver Palace. And that was a massive organizing effort that they did from Chinatown, and they reached out, and I've been with them ever since. And I can say that I learned as much about the economics of capitalism from Anwar Sheikh as I did from Wing Lam and Chinese Staff and Workers Association, and I put that in my dissertation. So it's especially a privilege to me to have Wing and Chinese Staff and NMAS and the other organizers we have here. Again, I don't want to be remiss. I organize with another here locally and that we will talk about. So with that said, this is a very important session because this is where the rubber hits the road. We've been talking a lot of theory. We've been talking a lot of big ideas, and we've also been bringing it down here at our JA conference, which I think is absolutely essential. And it's important here for us to hear how the struggles are and to see where the rubber hits the road in terms of class struggle in the United States. And all over the world also. All over the world we're going to see this. So with that, I'm going to introduce this. We have 6 speakers here. We're going to have 13 minutes each. I'm going to be here to be sure that they have it. We're going to go with the order of the presentation. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Wing Lam, Executive Director of Chinese Staff and Workers Association.
Well, English is not my first language, so spare me on that. I wear this hat, not mean any disrespect for the people here. That's the condition we are all in America. Do you know we have 24-hour workday, government sponsor in New York, the Empire State, 24-hour workday. 100-some years ago, we talk about 8-hour day, right? Now we have 24-hour day. And it's the most democratic state, city. That's what we have. When you say, oh, people don't like Trump, right? A lot of people don't like Trump. But who bring Trump in? We hate Trump, but we don't hate the people bring them in. Why is that? We hate Israel, but we don't hate American government. Who is behind that? We don't like the hitman, but we like the people behind it. That's wrong. That's not America, right? We watch TV too much. We like to be outsider. We bet the horse. We bet this game. We bet this game. We pro-Palestine. We against Jews. No. We shouldn't say pro-Palestine. Wrong. Actually, we pro-Jewish. Also, when we fight against the war there, we support the people there, support the Jews there, support the Palestine people. So we can't just like, you look at the media, always, oh, pro this, pro that. The people behind is out, control everything. We end up fight each other. So that's something we need to say it. For example, we say wrong. Imagine here when someone say we against genocide. Oh, this dirty word. You will be fired. You'll be kicked out. What kind of country we live in? We talk about freedom of speech. No. We have a lot of young people nowadays work in the high tech. Someone say, I don't want Google to invest in Israel. You know what that young people do? They got fired. Can we not the bartender, outsider? We are in it. And you know how they sustain the war over there? We suffer. That's why we get 24-hour workday. That's why our wage go down. That's our suffering. Okay, we like to, some people say, oh, we are pro-immigrant. We are against immigrant. Take a side. But both sides are wrong. Against immigrant is right? No. Pro-immigrant is right? No. You know why? Because we have a slave law in this country. Do you know? How many people know? We have a slave law now, modern slave law. You know, in this country today, since Reagan, you know, worker, if you work here, no document, you are criminal. What country will say if an immigrant, undocumented come, if they are boss, they're okay. If they work, they are criminal. What kind of country? We have that law. Is that capitalism? No, it's not capitalism. Capitalism is supposed to sell your labor freely. People talk about capitalism here, which, you know, why someone work become criminal. If you are not working, you are okay. I mean, this what country we live in is we have this law 30-some years now. Both Democrat, Republican, Socialists supporting it. Why? What kind of socialists? We are in it. We have a slave law in this country. It's not, what kind of, are we in the feudalism, slavery? Why we have this law? You heard people talk about it? You guys are the most advanced, most intellect. Most of you don't know about that law. Am I wrong? I apologize if I'm wrong. But this law is law of the land. That's why Trump able to say immigrant is criminal, criminalization. Because if an employer hires such a worker, he is criminal too. But employer love the criminal because they can pay them very low wage. They can bring other workers down. That's the system we are in. So that's why one of the things I want to know, I want to talk about, in order to talk about why my focus is talk about worker center. Why need worker center? We have a union, right? Nowadays, when people talk about labor organized, only one way: trade union. That's it. But trade union actually is employee movement. It's not, but employee, how many employees? But many work that we do are not recognized. We have no boss because it wasn't recognized. But you play basketball, you recognize. You get paid. You are employee. But if you take care of your children, you're not recognized. You take care of the community, you're not recognized. Your labor means nothing in this country. So that's what country we are in. So that's why the employer sanction such a way that divide people. Not only divide employee, divide people union, non-union, etc. If you are undocumented, you can have no right to organize union. The law says that. Because you are not supposed to work. You work. Even you organize a union, you have no right. The employer can say, hey, I want to obey the law. You're out. If a union say, no, he's an organized union, the union will be sued. You violate RICO. Force employer violate the law. But who started this law? Who passed this law? Our union, AFL-CIO. AFL-CIO with Reagan, great bargain, killing the labor movement. And some of our people, when they talk about, oh, you know what, I work for the union. What? What kind of union? The union are excluding others. Make the undocumented to be slave, underclass. So the American labor movement is very weak. Why? Become a business. Okay? We only take care of this worker against everybody else. So if you don't have class, the class, working class are not united, how are you going to fight? Talk about economic policy, it won't change because the working class are not behind it. That's why we got Trump get elected. Lot of workers supporting Trump. Why? Because it is a point about this so-called neoliberalism. Say one thing, do other thing. Like Palestine, without American give all this resource, you think Israel can do that? Genocide? No. Everybody knows, but we scared. We don't know what to do. At most, we say, support here. Support in a rally. Support, but how do we here can continue to fight that over there? What we can do here is more important over there to say something. Because they are war here, they exploiting us. If we organize here to make trouble here, to make revolution here, then they cannot continue there. So we are not outsider. we fight here. If we just watching TV, say, make comment, this never end. But if we, working class, come together, for example, get rid of employer sanction, we shouldn't have an underclass. That's the start. See, we organize undocumented, document together. We are not just to say, fight for worker in the workplace. We leading the community, changing, fighting displacement. The landlord in New York, you see, real estate are very powerful. Okay, like Israel, like Gaza. They displace us, destroy the neighborhood after neighborhood. If we don't organize a working class, who will fight that? Who can fight that? Small business? No. So when we say class conscious, a lot of people don't understand what that means, right? When we go to school, never heard anything. Race class conscious mean what? Recognize you are a worker. That's not class conscious. That's a very little class conscious. The real class conscious is mean the working class leading other class. Okay, because in our community, we organize. We are not just a worker lead worker. We lead other sector. Because the small businesses also suffer because displacement. Small businesses also suffer because Palestine. We got to talk to folks and organize. I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wing. I do want to just clarify here, the law we're referring to is the Employer Sanction Law, which is a law that was passed in 1986 that sanctions employers for hiring undocumented workers. And it sounds like it's a pro-union thing, right? But we're finding out that on the ground, what it does is it leads to super exploitation of classes of people who are just having to be in the margins. And so in uniting the working class, we unite all the working class. That's the argument that's going there. We could talk more about that when we have a discussion. I'd like to now bring up Zishun Ning. Zishun is an organizer at Chinese Staff and Workers Association. I think we have the PowerPoint here. Bruno, is Bruno here? Can you help me with this one here to do this? Thank you. Right, sorry.
No? Okay, this one, right? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting us here to speak. And it has been very thought-provoking, especially the opening, from yesterday. And just like one of the panelists in the previous panel, that also made me change what I prepared to say. I guess this is part of what heterodox means. Well, I was also brought up, in this education system, right? I went to college in New York City. So, the system tried to divide us, right, in many different ways. And in our schools, that's is the institution that work for the system. So, when I came to the U.S., I was also, taught, and trained, to see things separately, to divide the issues. We say, oh, we are privileged because we are in the United States, and we're different, from those, in Palestine, right, or in the other countries. We are taught that, we made it, to the elite college. So, we are separate from those in the public schools, and we're separate, from those who didn't get the higher education. And, we are taught that, you're Chinese, right? And you're different, from blacks and Latinos. You all have different interests. So, when I was in school, the Occupy Wall Street happened, we say, we are the 99%, right? 99% is supposed to be the majority. But the reality is that the 99% is so divided, then the 1% is the majority. The 1% is even more united than the 99%. That's, I think, is the sad, reality, of today. So as a result, when the genocide in Gaza happened, many academics, many organizers, activists, intellectuals, you name it, see this problem only happen in the foreign soil. They see that, it's a foreign policy, has nothing to do with the domestic policies. And they say that we are privileged because we're in the US. We care about what happened there because we get it better. We should give voice to the powerless. That's why we talk about Gaza. That's why we care about Palestinians. And many of us in the US and Europe, maybe deep down we feel guilty because, we are in the belly of the beast, right? We work here, we're fueling the US war machine. Whatever work we do, right, somehow we are maintaining the system, we're keeping the system running. So many of us, maybe we protest the war on Sunday, but we go back to work to make bombs on Monday. That's how we see the connection. We see ourselves separately from it because we are trained to think that. We don't even realize that a lot of times. But we also very separated from our communities, right? Where you live, where you work, your relatives, your friends, who you have relationship with. But if you go there and actually speak to the people, you get something very different. Like us, when we organize in Chinatown and the Lower East Side, we speak to many people, right? Chinatown workers, Lower East Side, tenants in the Lower East Side. Many people we speak to, 90%, more than 90%, they're sympathetic to the Palestinians. Why? Not because they feel they're privileged, but because they see that what happened there is actually similar to what happened here. Because our community is also being displaced by the big real estate and the government, the same government that represent their interests. And I believe that's not just an NYC example. It happened across the countries, including Tulsa, Oklahoma. We see that in our particular example, the government work hand in hand with the big real estate and the finance capital by upzoning their property. Upzoning means that you allow them to build tall, to build luxury high-rises. The more towers, the more taller building they build, the more market rate unit they create, the more money they make. But at the same time, it also drives up the real estate tax of the surrounding area and increase the rents of the surrounding area because the landlord will try to shift the burden of the rent increase to the tenants, the small business, the workers. So many of us are being priced out and being displaced. We lose our homes, we lose our green space, we lose our relationships. So when you talk about, increase the wages, that's the popular, in the United States. You say only about increasing the wages, but they will increase the rents even more. So whatever increase in wages in the workplace you get, they take it back. So the developers sucking our blood here to fund the genocide, to fund the land grabbing and bombing in Palestine. This is our money, this is our labor, this is our blood and sweat. Unfortunately, in the academia, intellectual circles, many people don't see that connection. If we're still not clear about this connection, then Trump actually has helped make it clear for us in his speech earlier this week. The thing is, do we feel angry that our blood and sweat are sucked into supporting the genocide? Do we feel angry that our home, our labor are being stolen so that they can continue to displace people there? Or do we spend much of our efforts, comparing who suffer more than the others, spending time to give our complicated reasons for why the US working class voted for Trump without actually going there, organizing with them against it? In our campaign, we have seen that many of our intellectuals, many of our academics, activists, they hold different trends of this petty bourgeois thinking. They organize unions. Unions only focusing on the workplace. They're only focusing on the jobs. They're looking down on their own members. They end up working with the developers. They're supporting these luxury high-rises because they say that, well, at least the developers promising us union jobs. Some of them, they say they support affordable housing, but end up supporting the developers because they say that, well, you need to let the developers to build luxury high-rises to destroy the neighborhood so that they can be so kind to give you back a little bit of affordable housing. They even have a name. They call themselves YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. It's very trendy, actually, according in many young people's mind. And we also see a lot of small business, right? They also very vocal, against the displacement, but they are fighting each other. They're competing with each other in nature. They rather the next door business shut down so that they can take their business. So they are not the ones who are able to unite and lead the community against displacement. And we have seen the small proprietors who play the identity politics to say that, we own the land here, we have a say here. So before, the white landlords have been displacing our community. Now, it should be my turn to do that. We have seen in Chinatown, the biggest landlord in Chinatown, Jonathan Chu, displacing the biggest restaurant, destroying Chinatown economy. And in the past, we fell into this identity politics, Chinese for Chinese, Puerto Ricans for Puerto Ricans, blacks for blacks. So this is what comes from the education system. And there was a council member whose name is Margaret Chin. She was the first Chinese council member in Chinatown, and she is worse than the white politicians because she supports all these luxury high-rises, support the jail, a new jail to be built right in the middle of Chinatown, all that at the same time saying that she represents Chinese people's interests. But during her time, actually Chinatown getting worse, becoming more desolate. So all this division actually all has a lot to do with the academics, our schools, what we are brought up. So when we talk about organizing, when we talk about fighting back, it should be starting from where we are right now. And this is, to everyone here. Do we see ourselves connected, actually, to the struggle in Gaza? That we are fighting against the same system, and we should undermine this same system that destroying our homes, our families, and at the same time destroying the Palestinians' homes in Gaza. To hold the same government accountable, who represent the interests of the big real estate, whether you're in New York City or in Gaza. If so, then I think we should really do something very differently. We should go organize, learn from the community. There's an old saying in Chinese that if you want to teach people, first become their students. We learn from the people. We think we have all the knowledge, but if you don't put it in practice, you don't see whether it's right or wrong, then it becomes dogma. And if so, then I think I have two proposals. One, I think I want to echo what Scott proposed earlier, that people should write to the president and telling him that what we're doing here is not intellectual exercise. This is this is for ourselves and for people in Palestine, and for Jewish people, and for everyone who don't want the war to continue. And the second is that we should go into our community, whether you're in Tulsa, New York City, or many other places, to organize there, organize with the people, to protect their homes, to stop the displacement there, to stop the big real estate, to stop the same government, the same forces that has pushing us out and destroying Gaza. And I'll end it here and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Zishun. I now want to bring up JoAnn Lum. JoAnn Lum is an organizer at the New York City-based Workers Center National Mobilization Against Sweatshops, which organizes workers of all trades, races, ethnicities, and genders, citizens and immigrants together to fight against the systemic racism and exploitation that we face in our workplaces and communities. JoAnn.
Thank you, everyone, for having us. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what Wing mentioned at the beginning about no more 24, what he was wearing on his hat. What he was talking about when he said that 24-hour work days are sanctioned by our government in New York City, what he was referring to is home care industry. So we've been working, NMAS collaborates very closely with Chinese Staff and Workers Association and Flushing Workers Center, another center in New York City. And we've been organizing with thousands of home care workers of all different races. They're mostly women of color immigrants, Chinese, Korean, Latino, Garifuna, Afro-Caribbean. And many of them are taking care of Medicaid recipients in their homes. These are elderly or disabled or ill individuals who want to stay at home and they need care. Many of these disabled or elderly require round-the-clock care because they have Alzheimer's or they're bedridden or they need help going to the bathroom. And so many of these home care workers are forced to work these 24-hour shifts for days in a row, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week for years. So it's very easy, like when we talk about the genocide, to see the violence and the inhumanity there. But with 24-hour work days, it's harder to see because it's like in the home and it's one worker. But I think the home care workers, in organizing with them, they brought to light what the conditions are and how violent the 24-hour workday is, how working those kind of hours around the clock, doing very stressful work because you have to be on call. You can't sleep. These are people who need help and maybe in the middle of the night. So you have to be on call, you can't sleep, you're tired, so it wreaks havoc. It's destroyed the health of so many of these women who are now disabled themselves because you're tired, you're more accident prone, not to even speak of like it interferes with the proper care and attention you want to give to the people you're caring for. But then on top of that, these women have homes and families. Many of them have kids, they have partners, they have elderly parents they live with. But when you work these shifts, 24 hours, it doesn't matter that an emergency came up with your child at school or that your mother fell. You have to stay there on the job. Your time, it's not yours. You have to wait until the agency gets a replacement for you, which sometimes is days. And so you can imagine the toll that takes on a person's mental health. So many people have spoken, so many of these women have spoken of the loss of relationships with their spouses, the estrangement from their children, and their regret. Because it's not something you can get back. So this is the toll of the 24-hour workday. And the government, we say the government sponsors it, sanctions it, because it's government money. It's Medicaid money, and the government makes the laws and rules around this and allows it. It's the home care agencies together with other entities, the insurance companies, government, all together maintaining this. Why, though, as Wing mentioned, in New York City, is this allowed to happen? New York City, dominated by Democrats, dominated by a lot of unions. We have socialists of all stripes. Why is it that so many don't even bat an eye about the 24-hour workday? Why is it that they will rationalize it? Many will say, oh, well, at least they have a job, or well, they should get paid. Meaning they should, it's okay to work 24 hours, but they should get paid. Well, even when the home care workers met with the vice president of 1199 about their owed wages, because on top of the fact that they're made to work 24 hours, they're only paid for 13 of those hours. Supposedly because they're sleeping and eating for 11 hours. But that kind of work, it's impossible. So the workers were saying to their union, we want our owed wages, years of unpaid wages. And what did the union say? If you insist on your back wages, the industry is going to collapse. This home care industry is built on exploitation of these women. They made it so clear. This society is so built on exploitation of us, right? And to expand and maintain this exploitation, they find more and more ways to divide us. So I think that's why it's critical for us. The task of uniting the working class is critical. I know that a lot of activists say that we need to push for minimum wage increase or more people of color in positions of power. Well, I can tell you that New York doesn't work. We've seen multiple increases of the minimum wage. We have an African-American mayor. We have an African-American woman speaker of the city council. We have a woman governor. Yet with all that, wage theft runs rampant. Wage disparity is huge. Longer work hours, including the 24, deeper racism. Things have just gotten worse for working people. In organizing the home care workers, we've come to unite the working class. I mean, originally, at first, the home care workers came to us about their wages. They were concerned, how come we don't get overtime pay? How come we're not paid for all the hours? And so in organizing them around this, and they were able to win, some of them were able to win their back wages, and in the process, some of the state government did increase their minimum wage, and winning all this, along with the home care workers, were able, by putting everyone together to fight to win this, it emboldened them. It let them see their collective strength. It kind of changed them through the struggle. You really could see the transformation of these women who were told that they were powerless. They were women, they were immigrants, they didn't speak English. What can they do? But through organizing together and putting the light on their wage theft and what they were owed and this work that they were doing, for which they were so exploited, they rallied a lot of people to their side, and that it motivated them, emboldened them to go after more than the economic. And that's why they began to put the light on 24 hours. They said, no more. Even if you paid me $1 million an hour, I wouldn't do it anymore. The 24 hours, no more 24, really has spoken to a lot of different workers, service workers, high-tech workers, health workers, retired workers, because they saw that if the government says that it's okay to be worked each hour of a day, every single hour, then there's no floor. Then all of us are going to be affected. And it also sends a message that our lives don't matter, that our health, our kids, our participation in community, that none of it matters. You can just work. So these home care workers, in coming together and leading, they are now leading a statewide coalition, all these people, it's really been about uniting the working class. people identifying this as their battle. And I think that this is also contributing to building a new labor movement. I mean, led by women like this, who, I mean, really, it's kind of inspiring, like, to work, like, that they are fearless now. Fearless and leading, not just other workers, but other sectors of society, to say no, no more 24. We want to be liberated. And not just for themselves, but for others too. It's like, and not just liberation from like material want, not just from physical bondage, but liberation from these ideas, like we've talked about through, the last 2 days, these ideas that tell you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So many of us are just in survival mode, or we just think we should demand what this system is willing to give us. Something's better than nothing. But these women, this fight for no more 24 is like, no, we're gonna fight for our lives. And I think that this is like just an example of what we could do if we could together build a new labor movement with that perspective to free us from the exploitation, oppression that we all face. Thank you.
Biography. Thank you very much, JoAnn. We're going to switch gears a little bit now. I'm going to bring non-New York City organizers up here. I want to start with somebody that I've had the privilege to organize with for many years now. She's a local organizer here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Her name is Kelsey Royce. She did give me a biography, Kelsey. I can't find the thing, so I'm going to let you come up here and speak. Bruno, can you help me? Is he here? How do I get this? Hit escape. Look at that. All right. And then you go to the other one. Can you help me here? Thank you. Cheers.
Hey, guys.
We'll get you set up there. Yes, it's called Kelsey Royce presentation.
While they're doing that, I'll tell you guys. My name is Kelsey.
Here.
And I'm a founding member of Arkansas River Rights Coalition and TARA, which is Tulsa Area Arkansas River Advocates. And a lot of the work I do concerns the health of the Arkansas River in Tulsa. And, hey, all right. Speaking of which, if you guys are interested, there is an opportunity to make a comment on a RCRA permit, and you can do that at ODEQ's website because there is pollution in the river right now. So,
DEQ's Department of Environmental Quality.
yes. And so thank you guys so much for having me. My name's Kelsey, and as I put this presentation together, I thought about the history of this place, about the history of Tulsa, and how land is treated here, how decisions about land are made here. And I just have to let you guys know, I'm not really into land acknowledgements. And let's see. Can I do the next slide? Gotcha. So, I think they're rather empty gestures. And instead, I have pictured here the allotments of the tribal members and freedmen from Hastade's original survey. And I think it's important to see the names of the people and their families. And in light of the ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing in Palestine, and in honor of my Tata, I have one last thing to say before I move on. Land back. So this is the story of how our working class neighborhood ended up representing ourselves against 6 attorneys. We went through 3 judges, and we made it through trial. and uncovered a shocking paper trail of violations of due process and disregard for the public trust. So were any of you guys here for the Father's Day storm in 2023? You lived through it, right? That was pretty brutal. And for those of you who didn't, we had 100-mile-per-hour winds come and knock down old growth trees. We lost a black walnut that was, it feels like a dear friend, and it's so sad. So on the heels of this sort of event, so it wasn't just the trees, it was also like not having power. So the heat is so excruciating, triple digits without heat. We slept with our front door open just to get that cross breeze. And sometimes in the evenings, as you can see pictured here, there's a field, right? This grassy area. We would just wait for that breeze to come down our street and cool us off because, again, triple-digit weather with like humidity that is so extreme, you just can't cool down. Really, there is a thing to that heat madness idea. I thought I was going insane. And so also next to these pictures of the field, there's a deed for this property, which belongs to or is owned by the school board. It says Board of Education right there. It's certified, all of this stuff. And so on the heels of this Father's Day storm, let's see, you can imagine our horror when we found out that the Board of Adjustment would be hearing a case for a proposal to pave those 4 acres, the entire field, for the construction of a new public library when we already had one just down the street around the corner. And why? That's what we asked. Well, we'll find out why. I think I'll just go ahead and say it. It's a vanity project. Some people want to leave a legacy that honors their name, buildings with their names on it. Does it benefit our community? No. Do they care? No. And so when we went before the Board of Adjustment, we'd had our little meetings and presented cogent arguments because we figured the first thing they needed to do, the property owner had to actually bring something before the Board of Adjustment. But we were shocked when all of the concerns that we raised and the fact that we weren't even allowed to engage with our neighbor, which is the Board of Education, right? It's elected members of the Board of Education. The Board of Adjustment are appointed volunteers. And so that becomes a problem. What we found out after the vote was that, but for the vote of a conflicted Board of Adjustment member, it wouldn't have passed. We found out after talking with the city planner, what could we do? We were told our only recourse was to appeal to district court. So we did. And if you guys can see this sort of constellation or network of overlapping interests, you can see that the Board of Adjustment member Whitney Stauffer was also on the bond committee for Tulsa Public Schools and worked closely with a library commissioner who is an employee of Tulsa Public Schools. So in violation of the policies that exist at Tulsa Public Schools, whereby you can't make off with property, of the district, right? I mean, that's the idea, because we didn't elect these people to make decisions with our public property, which is this, right? Which is the school, the campus, the soccer field. And you can also see that, let's see, have I covered it? the bond projects team. Oh, and we have Foundation for Tulsa Schools, right? Again, governed by a non-elected board of folks who get to make decisions, I guess, apparently, for our students. And the Board of Adjustment member was also the chair of the Foundation for Tulsa Schools. So she's also the boss of another library commissioner who's here as well, right? So we were like, oh, it's crazy. So our little neighborhood decided to organize, and you can see a picture of a couple of us having coffee where some contractors tried to encroach on the easement in front of one of our homes. So we made sure that we did have enough signatures going forward in our neighborhood, enough signatures just to rally the neighborhood, and we went to court. If you guys want to see that long, grueling process, you're welcome to hold your phones up and scan that. It's fascinating. It was kind of an experiment. Do the avenues available to us even work? Apparently not. But we had fun sometimes doing this. If you can see the length of the case, it was absolutely brutal, I gotta tell you. So, okay, so let's see. Did they win? It depends on what you consider winning. You'll have to go down to that site. So as we went along, we also discovered that the law firm who brought the case before the Board of Adjustment has a disproportionate influence on public works, Tulsa Public Works, and infrastructure here via appointed positions on these volunteer boards, authorities, and committees. And as you can see, these are some of the attorneys that we battled in court. The Infrastructure Development Advisory Board is, the bylaws were rewritten by one of the attorneys who we went head-to-head with in court. Another one replaced this person on the Infrastructure Development Advisory Board. So if you guys can see that, we also found out that the attorneys for the attorney who represented the, we found out that the attorneys who represented the school district also represented the library in other ways as well. In fact, this is an agenda showing that the library went ahead in violation of the stay that we had put in place, which was approved by the Tulsa Metropolitan Utility Authority. I've got about 3 minutes, so I'm trying to wrap it up, guys, as fast as I can. We had a judge disqualified because her husband was also at this law firm. And at the end of it all, we ended up on the third judge. And how did it go? Not our way, but we learned a lot, and we had to determine whether or not the fight that they put up had anything to do with the fact that the lease that supposedly they had for this property was even real. It wasn't. In fact, it had expired, and the lease was only good for 7 years. And now we're dealing with this, right? As we predicted, our blind neighbor was hit because they did not have construction signs up. We have fugitive dust engulfing, passerby, women with kids in strollers, and neighbors walking their dogs. And we've even I have suffered the indignity of having a press release issued naming me when the library won, but it's not really about that. It's not really about me. What I do want to say, and I'm wrapping it up, is that, hold on, guys. What is so harrowing about the idea of returning to the land or returning the land, right? Is it a fear that someone else will control it like it has been controlled under the entitlement system, chopping up rivers, putting names on buildings, and constructing other vanity projects? I want to suggest that we can break this cycle, and I think we have to. No one knows our communities better than we do, and so what if powerful folks hire PR companies to write awful things? I don't have the answers, but I just think we have to break this cycle. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kelsey. I just, on that, I mean, I would like to just say, just if I could, before I introduce our other two here, having organized here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the conflicts of interest are just so extreme. You have so many boards, so many, why does one guy sit on so many boards? Why does one person have to do all that? And so when you start looking, and what Kelsey did with this lawsuit with the Board of Adjustment is she exposed all of the connections that were happening at all the various different levels. So we can talk more about that when we open it up. Now we want to turn to an international perspective here. It's my honor to introduce Thiago Vasconcelos. Did I say that right? Also, Thiago has been a founding member of Companhia Antropofagia since 2002. I don't know if I did that right. Apologies for butchering the Portuguese. Being a creator of a theater festival. Can you say what's the theater festival? Mohan. Yeah, so theater festival and 3 editions of a particular anthropology that I'm not going to even try here. I will put here, I'll go towards the end here, Thiago. I don't mean to butcher you here, but I will say here he's currently coordinator of the popular school agroecology and coordinator of Okra Kasi Cultural Space, both in Comuna de Terra Erma Arberta MST. Thiago is currently MST regional organizer. Thank you very much.
Good night. First, we have a video. I can put the video and some gifts.
Yes. Could you help me with that?
This is a video from Comuna da Terra, Irmã Alberta, saudation for this conference. Só dá o be briefly. Yes. I think we'll be good. And I compliment if you need.
Okay, while we'll wait for the video, I'm going to take a second to explain. I'm sure many of you know, but Thiago is a member of the MST, Movement of Landless Workers. So I just wanted to give a context of it 1 minute very basic. Born in 1984, the movement now has participating over 450,000 families, so it's around 1.5 million workers. Landless workers who have been struggling to take back the land. Some have been recognized as settlements, and others are still illegal, so they're encampments. The one Thiago is part of, Irma Antonia, is still illegal, so faces eviction orders. And the MST is now extremely advanced in agroecology, producing the majority of the biological rice in Brazil, and has a lot of alliances also with universities and other supporters. And Thiago works with the cultural space in order to show how theater can enhance class consciousness. Sorry, I just had to summarize, so now the floor is yours, sorry.
And I would to give this present, Clara, to you, Bruno, and Scott. Two gifts. It's from MST and for the Center for Heterodox Economy, and this a collection of magazines for anthropophagic. So I will give. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us. I put all of this because I don't know speak English. Let's start. First, I would like to express my gratitude to all those present here, and I have a great responsibility because I'm dealing with MST, Antropofágica, and Cooperativa Paulista de Teatro, and so a lot of people are together, and a lot of people learn me the paths that I be here. So congratulations for my all comrades in Brazil now. And I would like to gratitude from Clara, Bruno, and Scott. And I will proceed with a brief presentation of me, which will be outline of the trajectory of my research and my current endeavors in the realm of collectives. I will say my professional endeavors are focused on realm of art, culture, education, with a particular emphasis on the relationship between these areas. It is important to note that these areas are related to work, class, race, and gender, all of which intertwined with history. Sometimes I learn from a very ancient movement, the naturalists, that there are a very deep relationship between art, space, politicals, and territory. So today I will talk about some territories in Brazil. This is one of the terminations that can be understood as a dialectical spatial movement. From this perspective, we can analyze how the capital attempts to impose the rules of the game all the times. How can we address or face this oppression? This is the main question. The crux this inquiry lies in the formulation of strategies to counteract this oppressive system. Now, my approach with these fields is characterized by a commitment to addressing the intricacies and nuances inherent in each domain, but that without lose sight of historical context, international context, work, class point of view. Now I will try to do an exercise, a mnemonic exercise. I will be talk about my private trajectory, but not to be talk about me, but all of these people here in this audience trying to recover mnemonics experience with senses, with art. Why? Because the senses experience the deal with politics, conscience, and community, the name of this table, community organizing and class consciousness. We have to think when we are child, because we start to do politics before we birth. So my journey in real of art started in a music school at a very young age, where I devoted myself to development of my music aptitudes. After this long period, I had the privilege of studying at the prestigious University of São Paulo, the major public university of Brazil, to pursue my studies in Portuguese language, literature, and linguistics. It was during this period that I and numerous collaborators created a theater group called Antropofágica that will be until today. Antropofágica has 23 years old. The continuous works with theater, art, politics, and so on. And after, at the same time of this, I start my involvement with theater, and I started to take part in political activism student movement. It's very strong student movement in Brazil, and I have a lot of comrades here that I spent a lot of time talking about Brazil and our problems, and international problems. The student, after this, I'm connecting with many collectivities and many movements that varies for size, purpose, and locations. Such collectivities embody a dialectical movement wherein they are both similar, distinct, undertake varied tasks, and assume distinctive responsibilities. Why I'm saying this? Because it's difficult to deal with a movement with millions of people and a community with 30 persons like a theater group. There are different ways to approach and thinking about art and politics when you live in 2 or 3 different collectivities. But I believe this trajectory has led me here and learn about the senses in order to understand that I will say. I perceive the world through this. Now I will talk about the sensory, because for me is the basis of art. And so much times we forgot to care our senses. We perceive the world through the sensory experience, which serve as the primary conduct for interaction with environment and engage with others. Our work is imbued by auditory, visual, haptic, gustatory, olfactory elements, immersing us in a sensory landscape that is constantly evolving. Art, by offering the possibility of sharpening senses, helps to resist the attacks of cultural industry and to understand the extent of our suffering while showing us the possibilities of putting an end to it, to erase our rituals of suffering. Freedom of senses represents a pivotal aspect in setting ourselves free from the forces of the capital. My argument in that is that senses function as a multifaceted domain of friction between freedom of senses and the ideology of capital. This occurs not only in art, but also in labor movement, economic shifts, areas of productivity. For this, it's crucial to underscore that such endeavors are inherently challenging within our society structure. The pursuit of structural change without a structured plan will be fruitless. The notion of art, senses, and ability to establish connection with other issues is pivotal in facilitating more intricate and affective societal transformations. The notion that consciousness is shaped by senses is particularly salient. The prevailing class conscious is intricately intertwined with the senses, works, leisure, and free time. Currently, those who wield control over our sense are the same that wield control over society as a whole. We believe that if we do not make a revolution in agriculture, in society, in art, and subjectivity, the human beings will not survive. Human beings will perish for the logic of the capitals, the structure, and your metabolism. I'm talking about the objective and subjective conditions, or all the acquaintances. When our actions led actions from MST, Antropofágica, and Cooperativa, when our elections led us to bring brigades to go into Africa, Palestine, and when we send letters protesting against colonialism all over the world, we are not going to solve the problem of these territories, but we are planting internationalism within ourselves. When we decide to plant millions of trees, we know that we are not going to solve the environmental crisis once and for all, but we are planting the ideas of the relationship between nature, between men, between women, with the land, which should not be a commodity. And when we donate food, we know that we won't solve the problem of hunger or poverty, but donating food is about showing solidarity and sharing what is produced in the other way of producing. We can change society. We can't change society without internationalism, without care, without solidarity, without agroforestry, without agroecology. This goes through community organization. I can talk about my experience with theater groups, cooperatives, social movements, and that was always that we created me. Just as politics inspires art, art moves, translates, and responds to the political experience. Our experience, a theater based in a camp, in an occupation like Okaraci, is a theater based in an agroecological territory, in a territory that we think about how to work in other manners, different manners. We have solidarity, we have other ways to work, not for exploring the workers. Means that political action and artistic creation are integrated to revolutionize the way we do politics and the way, 3 minutes, we make art. Now I will talk about some, very briefly, some examples from MST and a briefly reading of Antropofágica, a lot of papers here. Cooperativa Paulista de Teatro is the oldest of these three organizations. It's founded in 1979 during the Brazilian civil-military dictatorship and includes more than 800 artistic collectives in São Paulo. During these years, it organized several struggles in the field of institutionalized, which resulted in the creation of a lot of public policies that, for example, Fomento ao Teatro, Prêmios a Renato, and at the same time organized several Latin America exhibitions. The MST, I think Clara talked about, and Antropofágica is a theatrical group that has been developed activities focused on artists, pedagogy, creating dramaturgy, and creating plays all over these 20 years. Antropofágica is a theatrical collectivity that deals with art, thinking about its dimension as social articulator, and above all, in the process of permanent revolution of the sense. So I would like to finish with the invite all the audience to know this experience. We are in Brazil. Brazil is not so close, but not impossible. And this is not a polite invite. It's a real invite. We are in Yokaraci. It's a huge space. And we can talk, and we can host many of you, and we can work together in agriculture. We can work together in revolution of our sense. So I have to thank the Center for Heterodox Economics, and I will be able to, I will please to make some questions slowly for my best to understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thiago. We have one more speaker here. I did want to announce that we are going to be meeting after this. For those who are interested in community organizing, there's going to be something after as well. So we are going to have a fuller discussion for those that are interested. I want to now introduce our last speaker. Her name is Brittany Newton. Brittany Newton has served as an organizer in Columbus County and as Columbus County decider. She and her colleagues focus on raising the minimum wage in North Carolina and educating members of our community in the need to address economic inequality. Through grassroots tools like postcards, petitions, and phone banking, she and her colleagues are a group building the political voice in North Carolina to make a difference in that state. Thank you, Brittany.
Good evening, everyone. I would first like to say thank you for the invitation, not only to speak, but to get knowledge. Throughout this conference, I have been able to learn a lot that I did not know prior to coming here. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about me and how I got started with the organization that I am representing today. So an interesting fact about me is that I am a veteran who served in the United States Army as an 88 hotel cargo specialist for 8 years. I joined the Army straight out of high school at the tender age of 17. Some may wonder, why did I choose the military route? And that is because I am from a little place called Whiteville, North Carolina. I'm sure a lot of people do not know about it. And there was only 3 options being there. One of the 3 options was not a choice for me in my household. And those choices were military, college, or fast food restaurant. I'm guessing you guys know that fast food restaurant was not a choice that my parents was gonna allow me to do. So I did wanna go to college. However, my parents were not able to afford to pay for me to go to college, and I did not receive enough scholarships to immediately go. So that's how I joined the military. My parents obviously did the best that they could. My mom was raised by her grandmother, born in the 60s, and was able to earn her associate's degree at a local community college. She has always taught me to go after what I want and to not take no for an answer. She worked at a bank for the most part of my growing up days until she decided to get a job closer to home, in which she left and started working as an income maintenance worker for the Department of Social Services. I am proud to say that she will retire this October. My dad did not go to college and did not get a degree. However, he did go to trade school. The trade that he learned was architecture, in which he could create a blueprint in his head and not have it on paper. He added to our house that we had when I was growing up, and he added a master bedroom, a bathroom, playroom, and an additional bedroom. He is also known as the towel master, could clean a floor and buff a floor better than I have ever seen anybody do it. When he was done, you could literally see your face shining from the floor. Unfortunately, he had a stroke in 2016, which made him disabled, and the things he loved to do, he could not do anymore. I am just grateful that he is still here with us today, and he taught me that anything worth having is worth working hard for. Now, to be honest with you all, the first reason I chose to go to the military was because my dad had betted me that I wouldn't be able to do it. So being a daddy's girl, I loved to prove him wrong, and I did. My role in the military was an 88 hotel cargo specialist. Some may wonder, what does that all entail? That consists of handling everything that the Army moves by land, sea, and air. We make sure they receive supplies, weapons, mail, and equipment on a daily basis all over the world. We load and unload cargo manually or by operating material handling equipment like cranes and forklifts. Yes, I can drive those. The Army helped me become a leader that I am today by instilling in me the Army values. These values I live today, and I take them with me in everything that I do. The Army values are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Because of these values, I am who I am today. In basic training, they are trained to break you down, and by graduation, they are rebuilding you to become the strong soldier that you need to be. Because of this, I was able to go to college and get my associate's and bachelor's degree. But now I am faced with trying to find a job in my field of study, which is healthcare administration, in my hometown, and or finding a job that will pay me what the degree would pay. Factoring in this, and with me being a single mother of 2 beautiful children, Madison, who is 8, and Noah, who is 6, they are my pride and joy. I am working multiple jobs just to make sure that my small family is taken care of. The jobs that I currently do are HR assistant, tax preparer, nail technician, certified nursing assistant, and I help out as a business manager of 2 nonprofit organizations. Now, some of you may have seen the documentary, The Deciders. It shows a small example of my everyday life, and to the ones who have not, I would encourage you to watch it. It will give you a bigger insight of what the group Columbus County Deciders purpose is, and with the help of the Patriotic Millionaires and the Great Economy Project. I am one of the 3 team captains with the Columbus County Deciders. We are a diverse group that has grown in number over the last year with the residents in the Columbus County. We may not agree politically, but when it comes to livelihood and the economy in our county, that is one thing that we do agree on. Trying to get our voices heard and continue to spread the word around and have other citizens understand the power that we have if we stick together and work together to get the minimum wage increased from $7.25, as well as trying to get the super wealthy and corporations in this country to pay their fair share in taxes. A little information about Columbus County is that they are one of the poorest counties in the state of North Carolina. Low wages and unfair state budget priorities continue to wreck our community. We have put aside our differences and gathered hundreds of signatures from Republicans, Independents, and Democrat voters requesting action. But so far, our Representative Brenda Jones and Senator Bill Rabin have refused to meet with us. You may ask the reason why. Well, the answer is they don't have to. The current wage floor in North Carolina is $7.25 an hour, which is $15,000 annually for full-time work. The cost of living in Columbus County for an individual without children is $14.88 an hour, roughly $30,000 annually for full-time work. For an individual with 1 child, it's even higher, $32.24 an hour, or roughly $67,000 a year. Now we're talking about living wage here. The gap between what businesses are required by law to pay and what people need to meet the most basic needs is significant and growing. As you know, workers in our state, particularly those in hourly positions, have limited power relative to employees to negotiable higher wages individuals. As such, elected leaders must use the power given to them by voters to ensure that working people in our state receive a reasonable share of the proceeds of business as a matter of law, ensuring that the success of North Carolina businesses is strictly tied to the prosperity of everyday North Carolinians should be a priority for every lawmaker in the state, regardless of the assorted political leanings. One thing that our organization as Columbus County Deciders have done is festivals. We're very active in going to the different festivals that are around our area, speaking and explaining what our purpose is and what we're trying to do. We've been to Raleigh, which is our state capital in North Carolina, multiple times, trying to speak to our representatives, asking for coffee hours, sending petitions in, doing postcards, and they haven't responded. We've even called. We sent text message. We even was able to get Bill Rabin, which is our senator. He was at a veteran event, and we were able to get his personal cell number. Well, he didn't even answer that. So with that being said, it's hard as community leaders for us when we're going to our people that we vote in, and they're not even willing to hear or have a conversation with the people that voted them in. So if we can get our communities to know the power that they have within themselves if they work together, and actually, we only need 1%, of your county to be able to change. So if we can change the mind of the people and have them stick together, we can make a difference. But it's the fact of us organizing and actually getting out there. And I know a couple people were saying we have a space that people can come and talk, but we have to get out into these communities as well, because some people may not be able to travel to the space that we have for them. So if we get out in the actual communities and we're promoting and explaining our theories, it'll be better, and the word will get out. Word of mouth is very powerful. So if we can do that, the marketing side of getting in the communities, then we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany, very much. Well, it looks like we got about 20 minutes left until 7 goes. If it's okay with the panelists, I'll just open it up for the questions, if that's all right. We'll go ahead. Any questions? Anybody?
I'll get the one in the back first. Is it okay?
Yeah. Testing. All right. I am Ragzarita. I'm non-binary and gender fluid. I use you, your, and they, them pronouns. My masculine side is Rags, and my feminine side is Rita, and my full name is Ragzarita. So together, we're like a margarita. I am, during my day job, I have 3 different titles. I'm a behavioral health case manager, a care coordinator, and a peer recovery support specialist. In my organizing life, I am the creator and facilitator of the Sapulpa Anti-Racist Support Group, the Tulsa Anti-Racist Support Group, and I'm the senior facilitator of the Gender Support Group over at Oklahomans for Equalities, the Dennis R. Neal Equality Center. Beyond that, I organize heavily with the Tulsa Really Free Market, which is an anti-capitalist, radically free event. Beyond that, I also organize with the Trans Advocacy Coalition of Oklahoma, the Gender Umbrella Assistance Collective, and I have been participating with Food Not Bombs and Cooperation Tulsa in the past. My question stems from all of those experiences. I have heard some great information here today, and as a college-educated person, I'm able to mostly parse through a lot of it. But the people that I interact with in my support groups and the people that I interact with on the street while I'm doing activism, they don't know these terms, and their brain shuts down whenever we start talking about it. My brain shut down earlier when there were a bunch of equations on the board. And I've passed classes where I've used those exact, well, not those exact, but I've used equations as long as those before. And, it's been 10 years, my brain shuts down now. So my question is, what work are we doing to be able to get that information to the people that need to organize so that they can understand it in a tangible way and so that it's not this big hairy mess that shuts them down? In my experience, I like to get them riffing. I'll say something like, what makes you mad about racism? And they'll just start going, and then I'll pick out things to define along the way. And I'll be like, did you know that that thing you complained about is actually a racist dog whistle? And they're like, what is that word? And then we look it up, we read articles about it, we'll sit right there at the table and we'll do it. But the thing is, whenever we're talking about all this, not everybody even has the drive to learn this stuff, but it is important for them to understand why it's important. So we need to be able to figure out how to communicate it in ways that get them to be motivated to do the organizing.
Okay, this one here, and I got
Hi, my name's Savannah. I am from Tulsa and am organizing from afar with the Oklahoma City DSA, primarily in the labor, worker, and immigrant rights working groups. And with the new legislative session in Oklahoma and the inauguration of Trump, our chapter has seen a rise in popularity and interest among new people interested in organizing. Additionally, I have noticed an increase in protest organizing by other newer organizations in Oklahoma who, instead of joining an existing and a well-established group, choose to create their own that have no clear goals, not a clear platform, or any agenda whatsoever, and instead vaguely organize around being anti-fascist and pro-human rights, which can mean a variety of things. So what suggestions do you have as experienced organizers for people just now getting involved or who are been organizing in established groups to interact with these newer groups that are gaining popularity? How should we engage with these new organizations who do not seem to be organized whatsoever? Thank you.
Great
Thank
question.
you very much. We get a few more questions. I'm gonna get Naidu here, and then I got Yvette over there. Yeah, we got. Go ahead.
Had your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. I actually had a comment for JoAnn. Thank you for describing sort of the struggle of care workers, because I think one of the challenges that we as economists or economics as a discipline faced is how do we define work, and care work has typically been something, particularly work that gets done, even if it's paid, but it's done within the household sphere, it's been something that's been excluded. And even now we struggle with trying to give it its proper due, right? So when you talk about the overtime, right, which is not something that would have been an issue. I mean, I know everyone's struggling in terms of wages, et cetera, but sort of historically, industrial workers did fight for overtime, and in some of that organizing, care workers actually were excluded from that organizing, in at least US history at least, right? So thank you for talking about it and describing the struggles, and also how the care workers that you're working with are kind of uniting workers across different professions and different industries to think about what a 24-hour work day might mean.
Quick over here, and I got to get one more, and then we're going to let the questions, and we can get up. Go ahead.
My name is Yvette, and I said hello, how are you in our language, Muskogee. And I know there are people here from all over the world, so I wanted you to know, because very rarely do people bring this up, you are on Indian land. Thank you, Kelsey Mado, for not doing a land acknowledgement, but you have my tribe, the Muskogee, a block over. It covers, she showed a lot of that on the map. We are in Cherokee Nation right now. You go that way just a little ways, and it's Osage. So a mile northwest of here is where the three tribes come together. But I'm an ecologist. I'm not an economist. I just hang out with economists. And my question is for the gentleman from Brazil, because indigenous people around the world are brutalized, marginalized, industrialized, and it's been that way. You know, here in the United States, 400 years, but we're still here. So, as an ecologist, you live in one of the most important areas in the world. So, is your work hopefully helping preserve indigenous land and the ecosystems that are so important, not just to Brazil, because all of those boundaries are man-made. And so all of our beings, this goes beyond being human-centric. All of the plants and animals, even down to the soil, the macroinvertebrates, it all is connected. And it's very important that that is protected, and it's almost always indigenous people, regardless of the continent that you are on, that loses that land. And then the corporations and the people with the money come in and they develop, which causes more problems. So I just want to say, one, thank you, and how do you protect your ecosystems?
Okay, the last one here is going to come from Sophia. Here you go. We can circle back again.
Hi, my name's Sophia Rahman. I'm a student at the University of Tulsa, and I guess I'll call myself an organizer in training. I've often seen that in our movements, it's really, really easy to become divided over how you should accomplish something, and even if you have the same goal. So do you have any practical advice for how to maintain unity in a movement in face of that?
Go ahead and start answering that, and then we can circle around for other questions, and yes, go ahead, answer.
I got one thing to say.
Let this person say one
What I
thing.
want to say is, in 1949, when I was just a little kid, we had a thing from Superman, and it said, "Now remember, boys and girls, if somebody asks about race, religion, or country of origin, tell them that's un-American." You know why we had that? We didn't have any propaganda.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Cheers. You can answer. All you guys answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I try to answer the first guy who talked about that, right? Before I answer that, I think, I'm really thank you for Scott and Carla and all this, putting this together. See, as an organizer, we always start where people are at. See, like the society very divided, and left hand fight against right hand. Basically, that's how they control us. And we are no exception. We face that problem when we talk to people on the street or people come up to us. But we start there, right? And like when we organize, give example, the home care worker. Usually we talk about racism. It's attitude. That's a very shallow kind of talk about racism. But we try to start with, they have a problem with their wages. We start with that. But then we go through with them about how to get it. For example, 24 hours. In New York City, you have 24 hours. Go out of New York City, go to Buffalo, it's same state, nothing like that. But why? Because Buffalo mostly white, or even Afro-American. But in New York City, a lot of immigrant, people of color, black, whatever. Then they have a 24 hour. Why is that? Then the racism is no longer just appearance, attitude. So people can see that, go beyond what initially they just say, why we do that? is super exploitation, which is like people need to know, not just like exploitation. When the racism really manifests in the economic, is super exploitation. And then people understand that. And that's what we fight. And at the end of the day, we're very successful. Like earlier, Mr. Ling talked about Chinese. It's not necessarily for Chinese. But to be able to turn around our community, elect a Black Latino to be a city council. Who do that? We work cut across all this crap. We unite. We elect a majority Chinese community, elect a Black and Latino to be a city council. And he really fight against 24-hour workday, against displacement. The 24-hour day, not just a 24-hour day, earlier, also limit the overtime. No such a thing in America. People could force the work overtime. If you don't work overtime, you will be fired. But we put a legislation in there, no to 24 hours. 1 week, a maximum 56 hours. It's not a union contract. Only benefit only group of workers, which is economic. We talk about political. Do you heard about legislation say no more than 56 hours? Actually, at the beginning, 50 hours. But the union fight. They say, no, we need 56. We compromise. But essentially, this new legislation is there. And the Democrats refuse to make a vote. Because once they vote, they got to pass. So that's why it's really, we fight racism in that content. And that's the only way we can win. We don't fight racism, sexism. You miss the point. It's a political. It's not just economic. Because of we connecting. That's how I think when we talk to people, you got to start where they at. Then they realize, oh, yeah, why women got paid like that? Why people color pay like that? Then we able to unite with other people, not just people of color. Also, white folks, we bring them together because they also suffer in that sense.
I'm going to address some of the same questions from different my perspective. Like I said, I was, trained, in college, right? Similarly, use all these different academic vocabularies, before I, went into the organizing. And I think it's not just about the vocabulary, but deep down, I think the college teach us to be above the community, to make us see ourselves separate, from it. And we without, realizing it. But actually the institution, it teaches us, to how to better, divide the community and serve the ruling class interests. And I think that's on purpose, why all this knowledge seem to be, inaccessible, to the community. And, if we are holding that kind of mindset, looking down on the community, then when we go in, we just act like the experts, right? Because experts hold the knowledge. They depend on it, to make money. But this knowledge, actually, people, know about, and they're hungry, about, they want to know how they can fight back, how they can protect their community. So, when we go in, like myself, right? When I first go in, of course, probably like many people, I face that challenge. But I think one thing really helped is that, it kind of forced me to reflect on myself, right? Who am I? Where am I? in this community? Am I part of this community or am I outside of this community? We are no different, right? We get the education, we might get higher income, but, we're still facing the same problem, right? Long hours, higher rent, and, lower pay. Our generation is actually poorer than the previous generations, and actually our generation is more divided, than the previous generations. So I think the community, when they see us, they really want to know where we are from. How do we see ourselves? Am I with them or am I not? So if we are just go by, the school's training, then naturally the community won't accept us, right? But do we also like thinking that? Do we think that, oh, the community need us or that we need the community? Do the revolution need me or we need the revolution? Not just like changing other people, but also through that process, change ourselves. So from that, I also, share, gradually I see, more because I got challenged a lot, by the workers that I organized with. Then I realized that, all these laws, all these zoning laws, they are designed to be that complicated, but we demystify that. We present, why it matters politically, because people are very political. We actually successful in creating a people-first rezoning plan, the Chinatown Working Group plan, that contrary to what the city have been doing, which allows the developer to build tall, we actually propose to put a limit on any new development from coming into Chinatown and the Lower East Side. And that way to discourage the speculation and demand that more truly affordable housing to be built. And this plan actually serve in a way to bring together Chinatown and the Lower East Side, which is very diverse neighborhood. Chinese, blacks, Latinos, whites, you name it. We're able to bring them together because, through the plan, we organize and people see their common interests. Whether you live in the public housing or you have a Section 8 or any other type of housing, or you have any connection to the community. You don't have to just live here, but you work here, do small business here. You all have the same interests, to protect the neighborhood. So that way, I think we're able to overcome a lot of these divisions, by seeing, our common interests, and including, myself and other, young people who organize, because we also, feel very discouraged, right, in the current state of things. But how are we gonna, change that? So I think that's the very, good perspective, of how we see the community, how we see ourselves. And I think when we're able to overcome that, then we're able to also, bring others in and, as we see, that we have the common fight.
I just want to add something real quick about how to speak to people in the street or new people who are organizing. When I first got involved with the Workers' Center, it was just as a helper. I was a journalist, and a friend told me about the Chinese Staff and Workers Association, and so I went and volunteered as an English teacher. I saw myself as just helping these immigrant workers. I thought, well, I was born here, I educated here, speak English, and I felt I was different from them, and that maybe by teaching them English, they could, they or their children would move up in this country. That's what I was socialized to believe. But in the process of teaching English, some of the restaurant workers in the class invited me to their pickets, because before that I didn't really know what was going on in the Workers' Center. And when I went to the picket, these were Chinese workers standing and picketing Silver Palace and other restaurants in Chinatown against their Chinese boss, demanding their wages and everything, and tips stolen. And I was just blown away, because I'd never seen Chinese people fighting like that and yelling and screaming for the rights. And it made me feel a different kind of pride because I felt always ashamed because my family, a lot of restaurant garment workers, and I just felt like all we do is work. But here, you know, I got to see and be part of like a fighting movement, and my people were part of it and leading it. And so at that time, I had always thought myself, not even as a worker, I thought I was a journalist, like professional. Even though I was working 1 million hours and I got carpal tunnel syndrome as a result of working on the computer, I didn't think I was a worker or exploited or anything until I got involved in organizing. And especially with these women workers, right, like the No More 24 is really my fight too. I had no idea when I was experiencing the long hours that I was being exploited and that we could do something about it. We had a union, they didn't do anything about it. Anyway, but here it was like, you know, an example. And I think that's what I mean, I guess, because we see a lot of young people now coming forward, and a lot of them got involved through different things because of Black Lives Matter, anti-Asian violence, you know, a lot of people, young people wanting to fight racism, but looking for a way to fight systemic racism, because you know, you can go to some rallies and then there's another incident that happens, and you know, but how do we address the systemic racism? And I think that connects to what JoAnn was just saying, what we are trying to do through the struggle, the displacement struggle, anti-displacement struggle, the No More 24. They're examples of how systemic racism plays out in our society and how we can fight it. Thank you.
Me? Oh gosh, like I'm taking notes up here. So, you know, I think in some ways approaching folks with an intent to change their minds is a little coercive, and that's not a good way to organize with folks. So, just generally speaking, that's not an approach that I take, or that I like taken with me. So, pardon? Right. And for something significant to happen, I think that, you know, you have to give a lot of your time, and it has to be sincere, and it has to be like authentic. You have to be in the community, because only we know our communities the best, in our communities. I do think that, you know, before I pass this on, there was one thing that I wanted to mention, and one way that I think we've been successful, at least here in Tulsa, it has to do with the whole idea of experts. And when you look at the Arkansas River, you can tell that refineries on the banks are not going to necessarily work with the recreational space that they created. And so industrial, recreational, how do you reconcile those? Well, you can't, because they don't. And you don't have to be an expert to know that. And so, you know, again, if there's anything in that you can take, go for it.
I made a couple of notes to touch based on the questions that was being asked. One of the questions was, how do you speak on the level of who you're explaining everything to? With that being said, for me, when I joined this organization that I'm part of, I joined because a flyer went out to certain individuals in our area, and my mom actually was one of the ones that was invited to it, and she was like, hey, come on and go with me to this meeting. Initially, before going to the meeting, I knew nothing about it. I didn't have a desire to know anything about it because I'm just living my life because I'm young, right? So when I went there, they actually were giving a synopsis of what is going on, and one of the conversations was work hearts, which is the people who are working is what they called, and that specific synopsis was about taxes and saying how, you know, if you paid a penny or a dollar in taxes, you paid more than the rich did that year. And so that specific meeting was what made me, oh wow, I don't know what's going on, so I need to pay attention, and it made me want to go and continue to go, and that's how I got started in it. And the other question was, how do you get together with people who already have their own organization started and not wanting to come together with the ones who've already did the lay work for the organization? I would say meet with them, go to one of their meetings, and see what they're talking about, and then you can have a conversation and build together and make it better, and merge the two organizations together. And then you already have the groundwork, but you have to start it by having that conversation with them, finding out where their mental is regarding the same goals that you may have, and they just might have a different way of showing it. So have that conversation. And the other thing was how to maintain unity. I would say in my organization specifically, because I can only speak on what I got my hands in, we don't always agree. However, we are able to have those votes. We have a code of conduct that we use. And so if you have a game plan in place for when you don't agree with each other, but y'all can have that conversation, it will allow you to stay together. It will allow you, like I said earlier, we are a group of nonpartisan. We have everybody in our group, right? So we don't always agree on what our points of view are, but we have that conversation. Those tough conversations, we have it. And it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have a little argument, but we become a family, and families don't always agree, but they come together and they love each other and they build solutions. So that's what I would suggest for the questions that were asked.
About the question of if I understand indigenous people and be marginalized in Brazil and all of the world, and about the relationship between indigenous peoples and ecology, and between agroforest mainly, because indigenous people, it's people from the forest. So I don't use the name of Amazonia in English, because you know this entrepreneur, I forbidden myself to use the Amazonia in English. Yes, because you know. The true history, Amazonia is an anthropogenical forest. It's not a forest that be there by the nature. This is true. The scientific studies shows that Amazonia is made by work for thousands and thousands of years of indigenous peoples. It's not a only natural forest. It's the real forest. For this, Amazonia never can be like when we have borders and nation. Amazonia always will be for who build Amazonia, who create Amazonia. Indigenous create Amazonia. Indigenous people. Amazonia, it's not like other forests. The scientific term is anthropogenic forest. This is Amazonia. Personally, I have my ancestrality. I have one name that's Quaraci. I'm Brazilian. My ancestrality comes from different parts, from the northwest of Brazil, and I have this. And Anthropofágica has a very good relation with this, because we have a lot of people with indigenous ancestrality inside the group. And the name of Ocaraci, it's an indigenous language, Tupi language, that means, the name of the festival, Monhango Ocaraci, means Monhang is movement. Ocara is the place that the people go united together to be and dancing and take decisions. like we can say, like a square, I don't know how to say. And C likes mother. So it's like a matriarchal square in movement. This is the name of the festival. This is the real name. And about the relationship with the forest, it's important because this anyone here can contribute. We are in the MST in a campaign to plant 100 million trees until 2030. So we have more 5 years to this. We are already planting 40 million trees throughout Brazil. It's a huge number of planting trees from MST. And this idea to planting trees is historical. It's indigenous practical that contribute to. And it's political when we think about this with thinking in other society projects. And the great space that we have, MST has 24 million hectares. This means 240 mil quilômetros quadrados. Fala aqui, senão eles não escutam também.
It is 240,000 square kilometers.
Yes, this is square kilometers. So this is biggest than New Jersey. This is biggest than Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Rwanda, Eswatini. This is the area that MST cares in Brazil. And with join the areas of MST, join the areas that indigenous people care, this is a continuous revolution with work and nature. And for end this, Brazil was, is, and will be always an indigenous land.
With that, I would like to close out this first full day of the Che Conference. I want to thank the members of our panel here. I want to thank our audience here. I think Clara said that there's like food, right?
Yeah, so there's some pizza. So tomorrow there'll be like more food. It's going to be Lebanese, and there'll also be drinks. Tonight we were a bit austere because the idea is to try to get as many of you to kind of come, even if we're all exhausted, to this informal assembly to see what we can do here in Tulsa. I know you're all tired, so whoever wants to join, please. So the pizza's downstairs. It should be good. And then from tomorrow, we'll have a larger dinner with Lebanese food in the evening to close off the whole thing. Yes.
Just, I forgot, just one bibliography that will translate in English about the indigenous, Falling Sky. It's great, huge book from Davi Kopenawa. It's a Yanomami guy. So it's Falling Sky. Reading this book, and we'll learn a lot about indigenous.
Cheers. Hey, thank you very much, guys. Okay, we are adjourned. The pizza's downstairs, so those who want to come up, we can talk later. Okay, cheers.